Max, the one to watch for the best in entertainment, now has live sports with the Bleacher Report sports add-on.
5, 4, 3, 2, I let one go.
Stream hundreds of select live games from MLB.
That's gonna go!
NBA, NHL, U.S. Soccer, and NCAA Men's March Madness.
We just see what we think we just saw!
And it's all included for a limited time with any Max subscription.
He got him!
After the promo period, add it for $9.99 a month. Base subscription required.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Some things are just better together. Like party playlists and Friday nights. Campfires and ghost stories. Peanut butter and chocolate. And Reese's Cups are the perfect combination of creamy peanut butter and delicious milk chocolate. So, when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Buy Reese's today wherever candy is sold.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
Serie A Chronicles is a Bianconeri Chronicles production.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Serie A Chronicles. It's another week, Mina, in Serie A, and it's another big game. I feel like literally every weekend in Serie A at the moment, there's like a standout headline game, and this weekend was no exception. I'm jumping right in this week, Mina. No chit chat.
Oh, you're not even going to be like, "How are you? You look beautiful."
No. We're not doing it. Partly because we're on a slightly tighter time schedule than normal, actually, as well.
Oh, there was so much I wanted to share. Never mind. Yes.
Oh, do you have things you want to say, Mina? Do we need to talk about something before the football?
No, I was going to say that I saw my friends for the first time in like 3 months because obviously I'd been like pretty sick and stuff. And my friend goes to me, "You're still as conceited as ever." I was like,
wow.
I know. I was like, what? Because, she was like, no, I don't care about where we go. It's not about the food. I was like, yeah, it's about the company. Because that's the saying, right? And she was like, oh my God, you're still as conceited as ever. And so I just wanted your opinion on that. Never mind.
But you were saying you meant her company, obviously, right? You meant it was her company that mattered, not your company.
Well, evidently not. Okay. And I was like, oh my God, so you didn't miss me? She's like, no, I totally missed your conceited. And I was like, okay. But never mind. This was just a way for me to get over this horrible match.
You're just proving the point, Mina, because I was like, I'm going to talk about football. Mina's like, no, talk about me. So actually she was right.
Well, Nikki, I actually did just that. Oh, no. Thanks for pointing it out.
Sorry, Mina. But I'm glad you had a nice weekend and saw your friend. I did nothing exciting this weekend because I'm just any moment where there's not people working in my house, I'm relishing, but also hating because everything is, it's horrible.
Everywhere.
It's horrible. It's such a mess. Yeah. But
well, it was a way of entertaining me. Yeah, because of the Milan match, because of the fact that like, it's so disappointing, this performance by Juventus. But yes, I think we should talk about maybe Milan.
Well, I think we should talk about something specific that everyone's already made this point, but I still think we need to say it, that Max Allegri said last month, which is, how would Milan or Inter cope without 5 starters? Well, we found out, didn't we? Milan playing without Mike Maignan, without Calabria, without Simon Kjaer. Of course, they also had Hernandez out against Chelsea in midweek, but he came back. Playing without Salamakers, playing without Macias. Plenty of players, of course, no Ibrahimovic, long-term absentee. Plenty of players. I feel like I'm missing someone as well to justify that line of how would the team cope without 5 starters. And they cope with it better than Juventus, didn't they, Mina? Okay,
I actually have to push back. I was going to let you have this one, but I have to push back. I can't. I know that we have guys. We have to do a short podcast today, yeah. But I I have to push back on this because it's something that I've seen written everywhere, said everywhere, talked about everywhere.
In my column this morning as well.
Exactly, Nikki. And I knew you were going to come at me with this, yeah? And by the way, I don't blame you. And he's right. And what it does suggest is my favorite coach. I've loved this man for so long, since Chievo Verona. I have thought, wow, I mean, it purely has been my guy. And I'm so glad after 17 attempts, he finally got the best out of Allegri, and he deserves all the love in the world, yeah? But this thing that everyone's jumping on, yeah, it's basically not one match that you lose, your players, or two matches, or it's the fact from the beginning of the season, Allegri didn't have what are supposed to be your main players to develop a game plan that then, if those players go missing, you can replace with relative ease. And this is where I get to, for example, Juventus defeated Real Madrid in the Champions League with Sturaro in midfield. It wasn't the world's greatest midfield, but he was actually the best because they had already had a game pattern. So when you replace players, it was with a lot of ease. What Allegri hasn't had is main starters from the start, main players that are supposed to make the difference from the start. Di Maria, Chiesa, Pogba. There hasn't been a continuity of these stars, which is basically Milan starting without Tonali, without Leao, without Giroud for, 12 weeks, and then developing a game plan that then they could replace. It's not about having a game plan and then leave some players missing. That is what I think is what he's trying to say, that people are not understanding. It is trying to develop a game with Paredes being thrown in at the deep end and Kostic being thrown in at the deep end. And only Milik, with his experience and age, has been able to make a difference because of his experience and age. This is why we like older players. If you're Jose Mourinho and you're Allegri, it's much easier to deal with them, But that is the only thing that I have to push back on, because you can't develop a game plan when your team keeps changing every week because of injuries. And having said all of that, Juve were great for the first 20 minutes. Now you may continue.
Oh my goodness, don't do this to me, Mina. Don't do this to me, Mina. Do not be Max Allegri saying, I didn't think we gave up that many chances apart from the 2 goals and the 2 times.
No, they were rubbish.
It's flipping John Cleese in Monty Python doing the what have the Romans ever done for us, except for the times they scored and the 2 times they hit the post and every other chance they created. Dusan Vlahovic, who had 0 shots in the entire game, but managed to assist a goal for Milan in the same match. I think there was a gap from the 20th minute between, all right, there's 20 minutes, Mina, the 20 minutes, Juventus were okay. Between the 20th minute and the 71st minute, Juventus didn't have a shot.
You're right. There is no justification for that. But I do think that there is something to be said about not having your players from the start as opposed to them missing halfway through, That's the only thing that I will push back on. But the rest, you're absolutely right. Juventus deserve to be in this position. Allegri deserves to be criticized. And they have been largely one of the worst teams to watch in Serie A, if not the actual worst, because I even think Cremonese and Lecce have more of a game plan than he does. So absolutely no excuses for the 20 minutes. But I do want to push back on when people keep saying about this whole thing with, oh yeah, players were missing. Well, that's really great, like at the end of the day, but when you haven't had them to even develop a game plan, then you don't even understand where you're going. So that's what I wanted to push back on. But yes, I think Milan were outstanding. And I think that his decision to play what was a Christmas tree formation by putting in Pobega in the middle was a masterstroke.
I do think, I don't know if I think Milan were amazing. I do think what was exciting about Milan was what you just sort of hinted at, which is they changed formation. Because actually every single game so far this season, it had been the 4-2-3-1. And really through like most of the last 2 seasons, it's basically been the 4-2-3-1. And I was doing the Stan Sports coverage of Milan's game against Chelsea midweek when they got well beaten. It wasn't a close game really in terms of how it played out. Again, perhaps besides from 20 minutes at the start when Milan were quite good. But one of the things that I was talking about was, look, yes, the injuries were an issue for Milan. I think in particular, Theo Hernandez, really more than any of them, which is why this team was a lot better against Juventus. As soon as he goes back in, it just leaves Leao a bit less isolated on that left-hand side. But I did say then, like, one of the things that perhaps Pioli is going to have to show, like he's shown he can do a lot right, he's won the league, is that he can be flexible, is that he can be versatile. Look at some of the best managers that there've been in my lifetime. Someone like Sir Alex Ferguson, he took a while to work out Europe. He couldn't win in Europe, even when he was dominating for a long time in the Premier League. And that is because you have to have more nuance. You can't just come with plan A. You've got to come with plans B and C and D. And I really appreciated from Pioli in this game that he did come with a plan B, that he said, okay, we can't just stick with what we're doing. And I think I've got something that's going to work against this Juventus setup. And it did. By contrast, yeah, we probably shouldn't always just talk about Allegri, but it's just low block, low block, low block. It's never any variety. It's let's play with 2 flat banks of 4 and not have anything more creative than that. And maybe someone further up the pitch will do something clever. And sure, when Di Maria's there, sometimes he does do something clever. Or sure, when you're playing Bologna, Milik has a great game and it's enough. But there has to be more variety than this. There just has to be, from a team that's aspiring to be a contender. And I don't understand why there's not.
With regards to Pioli, I do think that he's very flexible. Actually, that's one of the qualities I think is so nice about him, is that we saw, for example, how he used Kessie as a trequartista. We've seen how he's alternated his complementary squad to beat the likes of, Spalletti and Inzaghi.
He rotates players for sure. For sure.
Yeah, and I do think that he looks for ways to sort of study the opponent and figure out how he can overcome them. And I think he did a really good job in the sense that he knew that Juve were going to do the low block and counter, right? Because they just don't have any other weapons in this arsenal. And it's just that the way that he managed to just say, right, you two will concentrate on the attack. You two will concentrate on stopping the counter attack, And then everyone had like a specific job that worked for the team. And that's what I think it was the details within this match that made it so good. And I think that Pioli studies those details, but simplifies them. Whereas coaches like, for example, I keep going back to this, but Arteta are very detail orientated. So it takes about 3-4 years before you can, I feel, produce a really beautiful team, because it's a lot to absorb. Whereas Pioli has a lot to absorb, but it's done in such a simplified manner that it works so well in improving his players. But where I think the problem lies with their performances in Serie A, as opposed to the ones in the Champions League, is that if he tries to change things, I think it takes away something from their ability to perform so outstandingly in Serie A. And I think right now what he wants to do is consolidate this mentality that they do have, sort of focus a little bit more on domestic wins before building a machine that can then be flexible enough to take on European champions. I do see where you're coming from, as in what I love so much about Inzaghi, and we'll get to that this week, is that he did strip it down to the fundamentals. But I do think his team are further along in, I guess, evolution of the team, whereas this is still a young squad. So I don't know how flexible. I just think that the way they play is all about intensity and winning the duels. And I don't think you can play like that every 3 days. I just think it's impossible unless you have like the dearly departed Ventrone and Pintus and like 1,000 of the world's greatest fitness coaches working on you. You just can't, right? Which is why Antonio Conte doesn't do well in Champions League. So he has to figure out where he wants to put his priority right now. And it's about your mentality with kids. So I don't think he has enough experience to have that flexibility of changing, which is why I think he settles more on, let's just try to overwhelm, and we'll probably be tired and we'll probably won't manage it, but focus on Serie A. And that's where I'm going to do all my testing. I feel like that's the way that he's going right now.
I want to single out some players from this game because we've talked about managers a bit, but I do think in a season when he hasn't been at the levels that he was last season, I really sort of feel like it's when you're someone who covers a league like we do, Mina, for an audience in a different country, I feel like you sort of spent like a year trying to like say to whenever just to give an honest reflection, but every time I've been asked about Fikayo Tomori in the last year, I've been like, look, this guy's doing really well. I think he deserves his chance with England. I'm surprised Southgate isn't giving him more of a look. And then he has a bad game against Chelsea and everyone's going, oh, he was never that good. You guys all overrated him. And I'm like, well, you didn't ask me in the last few weeks. He's been disappointing all season. I think he really hasn't had many good games for Milan at all. So something's changed for him this season. I was talking about that with someone just the other day.
Yeah, I heard you. I heard that show. But why do you think that he did well on this occasion?
I do think some of it is just confidence. And I do think that part of it is changing cast around him, right? Like last season, we gave him a lot of praise, I think deserved, for guy disappeared, who was supposed to be a steadying influence with him, and then Kalulu came in, who had been a fullback up to that point, plays alongside him, and Tomori was really sort of the senior partner and handled it really well. But this season, he hasn't dealt as well, and perhaps that isn't helped by the constant changes around him, right? The fullbacks haven't been, there's been no Calabria, there's been no Hernandez for a lot of the games. And
Become a member at patreon.com/Serie A Chronicles for regular bonus episodes and content.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Capture the spirit of the holidays like never before with Rockbrook Camera, Nebraska and Western Iowa's premier camera store since 1975. Rockbrook Camera has the latest cameras and lenses, so you can preserve precious memories and learn new photography skills that will last a lifetime. Let the knowledgeable photography pros at Rockbrook Camera show you how to take great pictures of family traditions, the kids' sporting events, and the kids' big holiday musical. Rockbrook Camera is always ready to help with amazing customer support. Join one of their photo classes to learn the best tips and order a beautiful, custom-made gift from their photo lab. Capture the beauty and majesty of winter's snowy landscapes. Be prepared for holiday gatherings and be ready to capture all the family fun. Visit Rockbrook Camera today, 1 block south of 168th and West Center in Omaha, 70th and Pioneers in Lincoln, or online at rockbrookcamera.com. Rockbrook Camera. Great photography begins here.